This is Liz Calloway. You're listening to Up with America on Talk 94.5.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Home of the brave.
Well, Glenn, what about that one? What a great version.
That was good, man. I was singing a lot of right along with them, you know, like I know the words.
I just hope we're still singing that song in 2026, our 250th birthday. You think we will be?
I do. I think we'll get back to normal. And I don't like the new normal. Those words don't mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
I understand people are using them a lot, but we'll get back to normal. I guarantee
Yeah,
you.
this whole cancel culture thing is not going to last much longer, I don't think.
You can't, you know, as much as you want to erase history, you can't erase history.
You can't do it.
And if you learn from history, you're less likely to repeat it if it was bad.
And since nobody's perfect, it's pretty amazing how good so many Americans were over the last 250 years. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So let's concentrate on that. And that's what the show's all about.
Yep.
So some other stuff happened this day. So let's take a second and go through that. All right.
Okay.
Obviously, the Declaration of Independence is what we celebrate today. But most people don't know that West Point Military Academy opened in Orange County, New York in 1802 on this date. Also, this is one of my favorites. This is the day that Thomas Jefferson announced the Louisiana Purchase. He actually bought it in April, but held off for Independence Day. He bought, get this, for $15 million, he acquired 827,000 square miles of land west of the Mississippi. That comes to $18 a square mile. Got any idea what that means on a per acre?
No, that's a little high calculation for me to do.
4 cents.
4 cents an acre.
Jefferson, that horrible person that they want to take down his monument, his memorials, he spent 4 cents an acre to buy all this land that includes, Louisiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and most of Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and Minnesota. Amazing. Here's a little interesting fact that some people know. I think it's just amazing. On July 4th, 1826, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died. 50 years to the day.
I actually saw the John Adams story, yeah.
Yeah, and the word is, and I don't know how true this is, the word was, and they were big rivals. They loved each other as friends, but they were rivals. The word is that when Adams passed away, his dying words were, Thomas Jefferson still survives. It turns out Jefferson had died 5 hours earlier. So another little tidbit. Let's see, what else have we got? We have the Statue of Liberty was presented to the United States in Paris in 1884. And then we have something completely separate from government or political stuff, is that in 1939, a guy named Lou Gehrig, a lot of people probably don't even know that name, he was the Iron Horse, one of the most famous Hall of Fame baseball players of all time, topped in, I think, the late 90s by Cal Ripken finally. Anyway, he made his announcement of his retirement at Yankee Stadium. I think we've got that racked up.
First baseman Lou Gehrig hung up an amazing mark by playing in 2,130 consecutive games. Then a fatal disease attacked baseball's Iron Man. In Yankee Stadium, touched to tears by the tribute, Gehrig made his last public appearance.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. When you look around, wouldn't you consider it privilege to associate yourself with such a fine-looking man as is standing in uniform in this ballpark today? That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
So Lou was the first person that they knew of, I guess, that suffered from ALS, and that's what most people commonly refer to now as Lou Gehrig's disease. So that was an important moment in American history. I wish we had baseball. I miss baseball, man.
It's coming back. They say as long as we wear our masks, we'll get baseball back.
That's what I understand. I think I could do that. I could wear a mask. I could go to a Pelicans game wearing a mask. No problem with that. Anyway, a lot of other neat stuff happened. But let me, it struck me as I was preparing for this weekend that trying to top what some of the great people have said and done over the years on the 4th of July, or that has to do with America, is kind of stupid because there's some really great stuff. I wonder how many people have actually heard a rendition of Patrick Henry's speech, which kind of, quite frankly, is what juiced everybody up. They had been trying to decide what to do about the British, and Patrick Henry gave this impassioned speech at St. John's Church in Richmond. And here he is, not him, but a guy doing Patrick Henry with "Give me liberty or give me death."
Okay.
He's somewhere in here, isn't he?
Gentlemen,
There it is.
there is no longer any ground for hope. If we wish to be free, if we wish to preserve inviolate those inestimable privileges which belong to us as free men, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, in which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon until the glorious object of our struggle be obtained, then we must fight. I repeat it, sir. We must fight! And appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all we have left us.
Arms, Mr. Henry! What arms? We are weak, sir!
They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so powerful an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week? Or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and a British Guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs, hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemy hath bound us hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means the God of nature hath placed in our power. 3 millions of people, armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country that which we possess, are invincible by any force our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sirs, we have no election. Should we be base enough to desire it, it is now already too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat, but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged, their clanking may be heard upon the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come!
Mr. Henry, we speak for peace, sir!
It is in vain to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that blows from the north shall bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. What is it that they wish? What would they have? Is life so dear? Or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God! I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty! Oh, give me death!
Two arms, Mr. Henry.
Pretty powerful stuff, even when he has long breaks like that. Patrick Henry was supposedly one of the greatest speakers of his time, and he got everybody repped up. That was in March of 1775. 15 months later, we have a Declaration of Independence. We'll be right back, folks.
You're listening to Up with America every Saturday at noon with Tom Herron and only on Talk 94.5. It's an hour of inspiration, patriotism, and common sense talk about the greatness of America with your host, Tom Herron. Up with America right here on Talk 94.5.
You're listening to Up with America with your host, Tom Herron, on Talk 94.5.
And I see that we have a guest calling in who's a good friend of mine, a guy that I adore. And by the way, I heard him give his impassioned speech. He might have topped Patrick Henry this morning when he went off.
You know, Chad Caton came across my mind while we were listening to Patrick Henry.
Perfect. Well, Chad, you there?
Not bad company to be in.
I'm here. I was letting you know that I'm with a bunch of people, and you haven't said enough years. We're trying to drink here. What did you like?
I hear you, man. Are you?
And I also need to say, after that with Patrick Henry, huzzah to you, sir.
Huzzah. People know that. That's great. Huzzah. That's what they all yelled and screamed back in those times. Hey, man, listen, I'm serious. I listened to you this morning.
Yes, sir.
It was not just the thug army that got jacked up. That was a beautiful, passionate speech, my friend.
Thank you. Glenn's there. I actually broke down after we went off the air, didn't I, Glenn?
Yeah, you did.
It was, I believe it, man. You know, we've talked about this, Tom. This country's in trouble, and we need to get out front. And we're very blessed to have you at 94.5, my mentor.
Listen, let's do something here. I've decided. I told Glenn that I was making today a tribute to the country. I wasn't going to get too controversial because next week we're going to get into it. And I'm tired of what's going on. It's time to fix this place, and we got to get going. So maybe we can do some stuff together, too. That would be great.
I love it. Patrick Henry said it. There comes a point where you have to stand up. And we heard it on Tucker, and we heard it from Congressman Crenshaw, the Navy SEAL.
That's right.
He said, at what point do we stand up and we toe that line? And I don't know if we're there yet. I'm not that guy. But I know that we need to start having that discussion, and we need to start directing this country getting this country in the right direction for everyone.
Listen, there's a whole lot of thug army members out there across this country, my friend. And so we just got to jack them up and get them going, and let's start doing that next week.
I'm all for it, Tom. Thank you for letting me be on. And for all the listeners, we're actually on our way to Surfside right now. Liz Calloway, Nick Summers, and myself are going to be judging the Surfside golf cart parade. We're going to be judging it from Neil and Pam's Bar and Grill right there. And please come out, say hi. We've got some 94.5 T-shirts and whatnot. And Liz and Nick are riding in the van right now to go get that thing down there. So I'm heading there myself.
All right,
and we will also be going live on I'm Fired Up. Thanks for having me on, Tom, and God bless you. You're a great American.
Love you, Chad. Take care. Say hello to Elizabeth.
Always.
All right.
Take care, gentlemen.
All right. Okay, let's shift gears here for a minute if we could. One of the things that I think all of us need to remember is how important the Declaration of Independence was, what it really means. We sometimes forget that stuff. So let's take a couple of minutes and let's listen to the Declaration of Independence, how it came about, and actually what it says. If we could do that, let's go.
You know what it is? They keep turning down the volume.
Oh.
The best pieces of writing I've ever seen.
It's a revolutionary document for a revolutionary statement.
You cannot help but be stirred when you read those words.
Thomas Jefferson's writing is absolutely magnificent. And when he wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." That was the first time anybody had bothered to write that down.
And then you turn the clock back and think of when he was writing, how young he was, what a statement it was given the history of the world at that point. And you feel the excitement of being on the cusp of something so profound that it's hard to put it into words.
If you review our Declaration of Independence, it has those beautiful words about all men are created equal and governments are formed among men to represent the people. It was a good statement of what we were all about. And that's the only thing people remember about the Declaration of Independence, that it was about all men are created equal. But it's really roughly a 28-count indictment against King George. And therefore, because of the way in which the British Crown treated us, we now declare that we are a free country, and we want to let you know why. Now, if we're going to have a war, we're going to have a war.
In 1776, you have the Continental Congress meeting in Philadelphia, debating a unified position for the colonies with respect to the hostilities that have already broken out. And the fundamental issue between them is, are they fighting for their rights as Englishmen within the British Empire, or are they going to fight for independence? And they're seriously divided. People who are perfectly willing to resist the tyranny of the British government are not necessarily willing to strike for independence. But there's a groundswell in favor of it, I think, in large measure because they recognize that having provoked the lion this far, there's no going back.
All of a sudden you have this group of people who are going, no, we're not part of some great chain of being with the king at the top of it.
Tearing down statues.
We are free people. We can vote for who we want to have in charge. And we're not going to tolerate you telling us that we have some class status we have to be trapped in. It says, we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, meaning that Parliament in London, the King himself, the courts cannot interfere and take away your rights because the state can't take power from us. Even to this day, it's probably the most central difference between America and every other country in the world.
It goes well beyond what was needed in order to declare independence. It establishes a philosophical basis for a civil democracy in which all persons are guaranteed rights by virtue of their personhood.
This political genius, not just in Jefferson, but in Adams and all the other people who collected here, they saw a new time for humankind, which is that we can be free and that we can make decisions for ourselves.
So we just heard these wonderful announcers with the History Channel discussing the whole situation of how the Declaration of Independence came about and how this young guy, Thomas Jefferson, put the words together. Those of you who don't know, by the way, he lived in Charlottesville, Virginia. He was a plantation owner. He had slaves. But he also wrote in the initial versions of this thing, he got rid of slaves. He right in the original drafts of the Declaration, he wanted to do away with slaves. The warring parties within the states didn't want to do that, so it didn't happen that way. So now I want you to close your eyes just a minute and just imagine that you're standing up on a hill overlooking New York Harbor, and there are 100 British battleships, warships out there prepared to bomb you. And you're standing there with your little tiny musket, and maybe 4,000 or 5,000 of you, and some guy named George Washington, who is your commander, and you got to find a way to believe this guy. And he walks up to you, and he starts to talk.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, a decent respect requires that they declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to establish new government. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, do, and with the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved of all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. In the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
We've got some interesting stuff coming up here, and a couple of callers will be calling in. And then we want to wrap up some of these things with some great music. So stay tuned.
It's Up with America with your host, Tom Herron, right here on Talk 94.5.
The only local conservative morning show on the Grand Strand. The Liz Calloway Show with Nick Summers, 6 to 10, weekday mornings on Talk 94.5.
Okay, listen, most of you know by now that one of the things that we value the most in this wonderful country of ours is the veterans who have served us throughout the years, all the way back from the Revolutionary War until our current group of veterans. There's a new organization that started 4 or 5 years ago up in Northern Virginia, which is where I hail from, up near the top of the Shenandoah Valley. And it's called Flags of Valor. And the guy who co-founded it and is one of the owners of it is Joe Shamess. He was is a combat veteran, special operations pilot, served in Afghanistan and in the Middle East and in East Africa. And I want Joe is on the phone here, and I want Joe to tell us, a little bit about how this all started and what you guys do and and by the way, if you go to our Facebook page, Up With America Facebook page, you can learn all about it and get a link also to their website. So, Joe, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me. It's incredible to be here with you today, especially on Independence Day. I can't think of a better time to call in. Yeah, so thanks for the intro. Flags of Valor, we started in 2015. Brian Stortz and I both coming off active duty, wanted to create a company that could make, really inspire American manufacturing, make things in America, and not just anything, something that we believe is our nation's family crest. So we started as a single product company making American flags out of wood. And that's just grown from 2015 to today, where we're making all kinds of products from awards and recognition products to homewares, you name it, and they're all made in America with veteran hands. And we're very proud of that. And a part of our ethos inside Flags of Valor is everything is wrapped up in service. So all of our team are veterans, mostly post 9/11 veterans. We have veterans all the way back to Vietnam that work with us. And it's a special thing to get to go to work every day and work with people that you regard as heroes. And when we create the products we create, we think about it as a memorial, that we're taking American values and we're wrapping them up in a product that's physical and tangible and permanent, and then sharing that with thousands of Americans.
Well, I'm telling you what, folks, when you go online and take a look at what is available, what these wonderful guys are doing. How many guys do you have now? Over 60, right?
We've employed over 60. We maintain a full-time staff between 12 and 24, depending on the season.
Wow.
And then our alumni grows all the time. We have people come in post-transition, trying to find their way. They come to us for 6 to 12 months, and then we help them find the next opportunity as they're transitioning to civilian life.
Well, it's a fabulous operation. Do I understand that maybe just very recently you were over at the White House?
Actually, that was on, what's today? That was on Thursday, Tom. It was a special event hosted by President Trump to highlight American manufacturers and American small businesses, and we got to take some of our team to the White House. We also got to present a flag that was specially built for White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, which was a really special occasion.
Well, folks, you need to go to the website, which is flagsofvalor.com, correct? Or is it .org?
That's it, .com. That's correct.
.com. Look at their phenomenal array of products. As people know who have been listening to the show here as we got started a few weeks ago, we are in the middle of retooling the UpWithAmerica.org website. And as soon as we're done with that, we'll put a link in there to you, as we're doing with other all-American manufacturers. But I just can't thank you enough. Here we are, this phenomenal country that seems to be struggling right now with some of the people that are acting up and, I would say, misbehaving. And yet we've got guys like Joe and his whole team of amazing people at Flags of Valor who continue to do the kind of things that make this country what it has always intended to be. We love you for what you're doing. Is there anything else we can do for you today?
Just share the word. We've got kids' flag build kits that we're producing now. We do the pledge every day at 9 a.m. There are Cub Scout troops all over the country making these craft kits at home and giving them to law enforcement professionals, giving them to healthcare workers, giving them to veterans, placing them on grave sites. We want to share the energy of that movement. We've been able to support thousands of families with that throughout the pandemic. And I think the world's a little distracted right now. Supporting American manufacturing, supporting small business, highlighting American values is probably one of the least political things out there. These shouldn't be controversial topics. These should be front and center, and I think core to every one of us. And so we can't shout that loud enough.
Well, listen, you guys are doing a great job. Far be it from us. National corporations, you've been on national TV and everything else, but I can tell you that as our audience builds, both down here in South Carolina and all over the place, you're going to be at the top of the list of people that we continue to talk about. What you've done is fantastic. We love you for it. Keep up the great work. And the next time I'm back home to visit my family, I'll look you all up.
Thanks, Tom. Come out for a tour.
All right. Thanks a lot. See you, Joe.
You're listening to Up With America every Saturday at noon with Tom Herron, and only on Talk 94.5.
So it appears that we may have another caller. Is that true, Glenn?
It is correct.
And this wouldn't happen to be a young man that's a friend of mine named Mike Motter, would it?
It is.
It is.
Mike Motter, how are you doing, sir?
Tom, I'm doing great.
Well,
happy 4th of July, Independence Day to you and your audiences.
And the same to you, Mike. What's on your mind today?
Well, I just wanted to tell you how much Roberta and I enjoy your program. It's patriotic, it's interesting, and I'd also like to take time just to thank our first responders, the firemen, policemen, and EMS, for all that they do, as well as a big thank you to our servicemen and women, past and present. They make it possible for me to be free to call into your program and express an opinion. God bless them all.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. You were telling me not too long ago about we seem to be lacking a lot of common sense in America these days.
Well, there happened to be an obituary that was reported recently in the British newspapers, and I'd like to share it with you if I could.
Let's do it. Love to hear it.
Today we mourn the passing of a beloved old friend, Common Sense, who has been with us for many years. No one knows for sure how old he was, since his birth records were long ago lost in bureaucratic red tape. He will be remembered as having cultivated such valuable lessons as knowing when to come in out of the rain, why the early bird gets the worm, life isn't always fair, maybe it's my fault. Common Sense lived by simple, sound financial policies. Don't spend more than you can earn. And reliable strategies. Adults, not children, are in charge. His health began to deteriorate rapidly when well-intentioned but overbearing regulations were set in place. Reports of a 6-year-old boy charged with sexual harassment for kissing a classmate. Teens suspended from school for using mouthwash after lunch. And a teacher fired for reprimanding an unruly student. These only worsened his condition. Common sense lost ground when parents attacked teachers for doing the job that they themselves had failed to do in disciplining their unruly children. It declined even further when schools were required to get parental consent to administer sun lotion or an aspirin to a student, but could not inform parents when a student became pregnant and wanted to have an abortion. Common sense lost the will to live as the churches became businesses and criminals received better treatment than their victims. Common sense took a beating when you couldn't defend yourself from a burglar in your own home, and the burglar could sue you for assault. Common sense finally gave up the will to live after a woman failed to realize that a steaming cup of coffee was hot. She spilled a little in her lap and was promptly awarded a huge settlement.
Oof.
Common sense was preceded in death by his parents, truth and trust, by his wife, discretion, by his daughter, responsibility, and by his son, reason. He is survived by his 5 stepchildren.
Oh, boy.
I know my rights. I want it now. Someone else is to blame. I'm a victim. Pay me for doing nothing. Not many attended his funeral because so few realized he was gone.
Oh, Mike. Wow. I love that. It's called The Death of Common Sense, and it was where, in the London Times or something?
London Times, yes.
That is awesome. Listen, my friend, thank you for calling in. Thank you for being a listener. Thank you for contributing some common sense to today's world that we're trying to deal with. And you have a fantastic rest of your 4th of July.
And thanks right back to you.
Super. Glenn, I want to take a minute. We got a few minutes, do we?
Absolutely.
I want to take a second here and read something from the basic material that we did to create Up With America. Won't take long.
Okay.
It's called A More Perfect Union. And I think it's important because I think sometimes people don't seem to understand the way this country was created. It's often said that the strength of America lies in its diversity. Yet many Americans, and obviously the enemies of America, forget that, like most nations, America is a union of states, each with its own government, each with its own goals, its own strengths, its own weaknesses. It should come as no surprise, then, that upon completing the Declaration of Independence 244 years ago today, the First Continental Congress distributed hundreds of copies around Philadelphia for members to take home with them, and as the first official reading of the Declaration ended, the crowd rose in unison and shouted, "God bless these United States," Not the United States, these United States. And for many years, our forefathers referred to this land as these United States. At that time, 13 separate colonies that had come together to create 13 states that made the Union. But it's not the United States, and it's not America. It's these United States. So the stitching together of these geographic and sometimes philosophical differences make America greater and stronger than the sum of its parts. We understand that the Founding Fathers and the amazing documents they created were all prepared to provide liberty to individuals, independence for the original 13 colonies, and interdependence among all the states to ensure that each is defended as a part of the whole, and that interstate commerce and travel is never a problem. We are major proponents of states' rights in the purest form of that term, not to allow fringe societies to escape the uniform rule of law, but to ensure that Americans have maximum choice in their place of residence, and to ensure that every American citizen understands, unlike other nations, change has been built into this system. There is no need to go tearing things down, or burning down buildings, or destroying people's property. If you can get enough of your friends to go along with your proposed changes, you'll probably have a really good chance to vote on the changes, not blow stuff up or tear stuff down. And you definitely won't need to hurt or kill people. That's what this union is all about. Some years ago, that great guy, Paul Harvey, did an amazing deal about our policemen. And I think that, especially after what Mike had said, let's take a second and listen to what Paul Harvey says about our policemen.
Policeman. A policeman is a composite of what all men are, I guess, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity. What that really means is that they are exceptional, they are unusual, they are not commonplace. Buried under the froth is the fact, and the fact is that less than 0.5% of policemen misfit that uniform, and that is a better average than you'd find among clergymen. What is a policeman? He of all men is at once the most needed and the most wanted, a strangely nameless creature who is sir to his face and pig or worse behind his back. He must be such a diplomat that he can settle differences between individuals so that each will think he won, but if a policeman is neat, he's conceited. If he's careless, he's a bum. If he's pleasant, he's a flirt. If he's not, he's a grouch. He must make instant decisions which would require months for a lawyer, but if he hurries, he's careless. If he's deliberate, he's lazy. He must be first to an accident, infallible with a diagnosis. He must be able to start breathing, stop bleeding, tie splints, and above all, be sure the victim goes home without a limp. The police officer must know every gun, draw on the run, and hit where it doesn't hurt. He must be able to whip two men twice his size and half his age without damaging his uniform and without being brutal. If you hit him, he's a coward. If he hits you, he's a bully. The policeman from a single human hair must be able to describe the crime, the weapon, the criminal, and tell you where the criminal is hiding, but if he catches the criminal, he's lucky. If he doesn't, he's a dunce. He runs files and writes reports until his eyes ache to build a case against some felon who will get dealed out by a shameless Shamess. The policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentleman. And of course he'll have to be a genius because he'll have to feed a family on a policeman's salary.
So we're coming to the end. It's hard to believe coming to the end of a show already. I'm learning how to do this so that we get all the pieces and parts put together, but we're getting there. I think we're making progress. I do want to take a couple of minutes and just say this as we end today's very special show on Independence Day. First of all, I want to say thank you to Joe Shamess for this amazing organization that he's put together up in Virginia, Flags of Valor. Take some time, go to their website, see if you can't buy or find some products that you would love to have. I want to thank Chad for calling in. Chad's doing a great job here in the Myrtle Beach area, trying to get people riled up, and he's doing a good job of it. He's not afraid to say whatever has to be said. Thank Mike Motter for calling in and that great thing about common sense. And like all of us, to take a few minutes this beautiful day, think back about your favorite 4th of July of all time. Mine was in 1976. I'll never forget it. And think about your family and your loved ones and the people that you care about and anybody in this country that's suffering right now from whatever their ailment is. We love you all. We thank you so much for tuning in again this Saturday on Up with America Radio. Thanks again.
Is just a good